A warm welcome back to the Forensics Detailing channel, or Forensic Unplugged channel. It's probably going out on the Unplugged channel. So today I am just working on kind of heat one of the best detail spray, and we've got this lineup of 9 products, and I'm just conducting my gloss testing. In fact, I've just kind of finished it, and here are all my pre-gloss average readings taken on a 3 reading average on 3 different parts of the panel of gloss with the 20° rather than 60° setting, which is probably more accurate for gloss above 70. So gloss rating on the left, haze rating average on the right. So log haze is what you'd think, a sort of hazy white panel. If you sort of wet sanded it or had scratches, the more hazy it is, the higher the log haze reading. The gloss is gloss is a defined standard unit, so in GU, and it is more the shine, the quality of the light that comes back, you know. So gloss and haze, 2 specific scientific things that you can measure with this Row Point IQ. Here's my post reading averages, which I've just taken, and what I want to do with this video is just go through and do it again. I'm going to use this data for my video, but I always think it's good to just show you kind of what we're doing as well. And this is like a sanity check. When we go and do this again, the data is going to be different. But a quick summary of this data is really, with this gloss level of 86 roughly as a base gloss, which is quite glossy actually, but it's not amazing. You could probably get it north of 90. These detail sprays really struggle to increment gloss, but there is good news. They have improved clarity or the haze on most of them. So which kind of actually goes in with some of the detailing fundamental rules actually that have been around for a long time, that really the physical gloss in the paint is what's giving you the shine. The worse that physical gloss, when it starts to get really low, then these products, you can notice the point where they impart it more. This is a compounded panel rather than a high gloss finish where you're up in the 90s, where these products might even lower gloss, which some people will be like, what the hell? Yeah, that's just the reality of it. So let's just take our device. It's been calibrated, but we're going to keep the calibration. We don't want to just alter that variable, and we're going to go again and see what we get. Get off. Let's clear out all the readings. See what we get, how radically different it is. I'm just on the lookout for bum readings. So you can see that reading there is close to our kind of averages, which is good. It's just a sanity check as well. Yeah. So we're good. I know my data down here is pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. That's a bit of a low reading, but low log haze is good. So let's have a look at our averages. So 84.0, I got 84.6 before, that's very good. So that's good data. And 8.2 before, and 8.1. So it's just the means to sanity check. But I like doing this as well, because you can see, the more you can show people about what you're doing, the more people can see. So this one you can see, well, that's a slightly higher log haze reading, but our gloss is good. Let's just keep going. Let's keep going. Yeah, that's a bit more consistent with what we're seeing there. But we'll probably get some higher things. And let's have a look at our stats. 86.3, so a little bit higher than what we read last time. You can see the variance, can't you, in all of this. And 9.4, so kind of similar within tolerance. So similar, but you can see that variance. And because this is so tight, that variance does make a huge difference. So the dilemma, and it was something I was talking about in another video, is the dilemma is really like, and I've came to this realization. Let me just carry on testing while I'm talking. I came to this realization a long time ago, and you've heard me say it before, is with gloss testing, really, you need to do a lot more. you need to do a lot more testing. And really, I should be repeating this. So you can see we're consistent, I think. Yeah, let's just have a look. That's a higher gloss reading on the Car Pro. Oh, okay, but 82 average reading versus 86.4 that I got before. And 10.1 the same. So it's just a sanity check, really. And that sanity check is all good. I'll carry on doing it. But you get the idea. So there's our data. So then what I'll do is go and do the deltas. So I'll do how much gloss we've incremented, how much haze we've reduced, because you want to reduce haze, but you want to increase gloss. Add the two together to get a number. So the reduction in haze is a number. The bigger that number, the better. Add it to the amount of gloss incremented. So say, for example, here, we've reduced haze by 1, so that gives us 1 unit increment, but we've lost 2 units exactly of gloss. So the overall incremental delta on turtle wax is -1. So you get the idea. So straight away, the Sonax BSD has outperformed it on gloss because let's call it optical rating or whatever, because it's reduced haze by 1.1, but it's lost gloss by 0.2. So that gives an overall delta of +0.9 versus -1. So Sonax BSD has outperformed the turtle wax in the gloss testing, etc. We go through, we do all of the same for that. We write it on our spreadsheet, and we then get a ranking where the one that increments the most optical improvement gets 10 points, and we ascend it down to the least, giving, there's only 9 products here, so it'd be 2 points, won't it, for the one with the least gloss increment. We've done the same like the slickness testing. Best gets 10, worst gets 2. Same with the price, best 10. We'll do that with the hydrophobicity. We'll do that with the gloss stage durability. We've got an overall user experience criteria as well, which will factor in what it's like to use the product, how good the instructions are, how good the packaging is, and how versatile they are as detailers, which is important. Some of them, for example, as a detailer, some of them you could use on interior. Some of them you can use wet as a drying aid, and they tell you. Some of them you can use on glass. Some of them you can spray on plastic trims. And I think with a detailer, if you get one that says this is for paintwork only, that could be a showstopper for you. So we want to mark versatility as well. So that's why I've just put these categories in for, can use it on glass, plastics, interior, and use wet. Trigger and bottle rating, which will only be a tiny factor of the overall user experience. But if you buy a product and the trigger is terrible and spits, and there's one with a bad trigger in here actually, and then the rest okay, and then up to some really good triggers, the real quality ones, and there's a big difference in price in those triggers. So it's almost as important in the product. So I do like to just give a little reward for the brands that don't use the cheap stuff and use the good stuff. Quality of instructions is important. I'll make notes on usage as well. I've already made, so the slickness test is reflecting, it's more a sort of lab style test with the little microfiber blocks and tipping them. But I'm in the usage, there are 4 of them with a really slick buff, which I'll give them a bit of credit for. But then when these products go on to harden, some of them have got a bit of a sticky buff, or less slick buff, shall we say. But then when they set, and the next day you can feel the slickness. But I think it's nice to have the slickness there when you're working with them, because that's when you get to experience it. So yeah, it's a tough one, that is, because you could argue it should be factored into slickness, but it's a little bit arbitrary because you're sort of guessing that it's slick when you're doing the application. But 4 of them definitely. So yeah, I thought I'd bring you in on that. Thought you might find it interesting. So it's very belt and braces, this, but in a good way. It's decent. One thing is, I'm familiar with every single product in this lineup. Very familiar, except less familiar with that one because it's the only one I haven't used. I'm well through that. Probably where my finger is probably how much I've got left. That I've used virtually the whole bottle. That I've gone through bottles of it before. That I've gone through bottles of it before. That I have. That I've used a few times. That I've gone through bottles of it. And that I've gone through bottles of it. That's pretty sad. Not one bottle of that I've done before previously. That's a fresh new bottle. They're all fresh new bottles. Well, relatively fresh. They're not expired or anything. So there we go. What's going to happen with this particular test is, because it's so functional, if it wasn't functional, and it was just like I got 10 guys to all come round and bring their cars down here and just spray them on the cars, it would be a nightmare. If you weren't doing this lab testing, I use the word lab testing, very loosely, because it's not a lab here. But this is essentially the sort of stuff that I think detailing brands would do as well. Maybe not, but they'll have test panels and they'll do some of this glossy stuff. If you didn't do any of this testing and looking at the hydrophobicity and cross-comparing, you'd have no idea of how, if you wanted to gauge, for example, as a brand, how hydrophobic is our product compared to the rest of the market. You'd have to do something like this. So you do learn about the products, and it's really the only way you can learn. But then the argument, and it's a very valid argument, is that this type of testing isn't the same as just using these in anger. So you have to do a little bit of both, which I'm going to try and do. Well, in this case, it's very easy. I'll just use this like on the Porsche, the one that I'm not too familiar with. I'll just use it a couple of times. I'm forming an opinion of it already. But yeah, if I got 10 lads around and we all played around with all of these detail sprays, I was like, right guys, I want you to rank them all. They would struggle like hell and I would struggle like hell. And I think what would happen is you'd end up picking a product from a brand that you kind of like and you use that doesn't cost the earth. Because I think most people would, some guys, that's the thing that, if I gave them the choice of this and I'm like, I didn't mention price, they might just be happy with any of them. They might like that one if they want beading or whatever. When I suddenly said, right, okay, you like this one, for example, that one there, right, give me 17 quid. A lot of them will be like, oh, how much? Well, this one's like 5 quid. That one's 5 quid or something. That's about 5 quid. That's not the cheapest either, I don't think. I think that's the cheapest. Some of them, though, let's just go with CarPro because it's a more premium brand, no disrespect, but it is. They might go, well, no, this is good. This is slick. I like this. Again, it's a fiver versus 16 quid. That's not worth 3 times the cost of the CarPro product. But to someone else, it might be. So it just depends. And it is all such a fine line. These are all little bottles of little weird chemicals, mainly water. We've talked about the chemistry of these products and what materials can be used many times on the channel. So hopefully if you follow the channel, you've got a bit of an idea of some of the chemicals that are used, like wax emulsions, silicon, functional silicons in them, polysiloxane, linear silicon, non-bonding silicon that can, almost like putting a thin layer of non-bonding silicon, water miscible, that doesn't bond. A lot of them contain that. So the siloxane is the typical ingredient. If it lasts, it's durable. But so is a wax emulsion, because when you put a watery wax emulsion down and it sets, that'll put a layer on that can be quite hydrophobic if it's an engineered emulsion product, wax emulsion for these type of things. What other materials? Well, the SiO2 and the graphene. Interesting, really, on those. I'll tell you one thing about graphene, and this is based on proper experience of testing products with graphene in it, like this. Graphene products always do well on slickness. Yeah, so there is something to do with that, but they don't tend to do too well in hydrophobicity. Although they can do, but typically graphene doesn't add that. But graphene does seem to add slickness. The rest of the graphene claims around anti-fouling, less water spots and all that, I haven't seen in testing any evidence of that, but I haven't really gone after that. And I'm not sure if I would be able to replicate that. That'd be involve somehow trying to put water spots on panels and see how hard they are to wipe off and all that. It ends up, if you're not got a good approach, it can end up that you're just, it's too arbitrary, you know, and your results aren't concrete. This level of gloss testing, even though there's a big inaccuracy, it is scientific, because we prep the same panel, we take our pre-readings, we apply the products, we allow it to cure, we take our post-gloss readings. It's scientific, it's controlled to a certain extent, but the problem with it is the ability for these products to add gloss is marginal. So, and they're all so close that really this, as I've said, it would require more testing, and more and more and more and more and more. The more you can do, the more you can zero in on accuracy. So there is a lot of inaccuracy with this. And even if I was to compound back again, mix up the positions on the panel, redo the gloss testing, it would be very tight again, but the results could shift. Even if I did that 10 times, really you might need to do it on 3 different physical surfaces. One perhaps with, you could say this is medium to decent gloss, but high haze. You could pick different starting points. You should maybe perhaps pick one with very high gloss, 0 haze, you know, a perfected panel, and then a trashed panel. Problem with trashed panels is the consistency. How do you generate a consistent, very low gloss panel? Because we've used a very coarse compound and we still get quite high gloss readings. So you'd have to go and explore methods and get a really coarse compound, an old school product. But would you be able to deliver a consistent starting point? It'd be hard. So yeah, it's just the more you do, the more time you spend testing, the better your results. And I always want to emphasize that point, because you could also pass this testing off as being really amazing. It's like, whoa, yeah, look, he's got a gloss meter. Whoa, he's got a flat panel. Isn't that great? He's tested, forensics tested this and said this one's the glossiest and this one's the glossiest. So I always like to just have these discussions so that you guys, I don't want to sound patronizing, but it's educational in terms of you won't misunderstand the final test. Because the layman's might just take away from this whole test that product X there, for example, it isn't, but has the highest gloss increments. Maybe it does, who knows? So then forever, Angel Wax QED is known as the glossiest product on the market because forensics once tested it. But then I could do another comparison like next year and it might not fare so well. So yeah, I like to really caveat that. And even at least it means you understand what we're doing is real, because there isn't a lot of real testing being done out there. There really isn't. And yeah, and you know, to be fair, I wouldn't even be able to conduct this testing if I didn't have that. I knew 10 years ago, I knew after I first used a gloss meter on a flat test panel that I had to go and replicate that, and I had to search that out. Back in the day when the channel budget for equipment was not high, it's not that high now, but I would fork out if I didn't have a tri-band gloss meter, a good tri-band, or a good gloss meter. I'd want a tri-band, or at least a dual band 20 and 60, ideally. But I wouldn't want to be without the haze, and I also wouldn't want to be long term without R-Spec, which I do find useful. I don't tend to use it, but it's there. And what's the other one? RIC, reflected image quality, which is like distortion, where the light ends up on the array. So if it shines, it's not the intensity of it that comes back for the, like with the gloss, it's more where the light goes. So it knows it's got an array of light beams that go out. They bounce off the surface, they go back up, and they go into the array, not just one little diode, but loads of diodes. That's why this machine is so expensive. and it knows when it picks up a light beam where that's been sent from and where it's been received from. And if it's moved, it knows that the image, reflected image quality is distorted. And it does that for every single light source location in the array. So we're getting technical there. Most gloss meters, your Chinese 100 quid ones that are just 60 degree, well, they're not accurate at measuring this anyway. They're way off. They're way off. They'll probably read this panel as like 95 for most of these. So it would overread because it tails off its accuracy. But also they don't have the same arrays, and I think some of them may not even have arrays. Yeah, they might just be a light source, a receiver, so it can't measure distortion because it doesn't have like 100 or 500. There is a number for the amount of pickups in there. You can get that from the specs. It doesn't have an array, and that is why this is an R&D tool, and it costs thousands of pounds. And a Chinese gloss meter that costs 160 quid is not the same, but it's an option, and I used it for years because I'm lucky because Road Point are up the road, and I get on really well with them. I've got a relationship with them. I'll try and tell you about that gloss meter, but I don't need to, but just out of respect to them. A British company that make these things in-house, and this was developed quite a long time ago, and I think they're moving on. Last time I spoke to them when was that? Years ago, but they were looking at rather than light spectral kind of ones, looking at optical light imaging to get the quality, and that's up and running. Actually, they have those devices, but they're even bigger, and they're used by like companies like car manufacturers. After they've painted a car, they can go in with this equipment on a computer. The car's going down the line. It can go on the robot arm and measure boof, 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 boof on the bonnet, boof, 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 boof on the roof, and take set piece readings so that they know when that car's gone off the line, the paint quality meets a certain standard. They can put in place whatever those standards are. It's not looking for defects as such. It's not that sort of tool, but it's a sanity check that when it goes through the line, you could probably use it to look for defects, but you'd use the human eye still to go around the whole car and tidy up any bits, any spot faults. But it's a way of them sanity checking. So suddenly, if they're doing a run of paints and the first one comes out and it's way below the standards, and it's like, oh, stop, and check what's going on, because it's not delivered. So like applications and companies like this, British kind of engineering, we are still, in terms of high quality engineering, we are still a great engineering nation. The problem is the Chinese will have this stripped down quicker than you'll lose your alloys if you park anywhere in Liverpool. It's a joke. It's a joke. I was there the other day. I think that's the only reason I'm doing that joke. So that's the challenge that company face, is just everything they do. But the cost of making that and the engineering required, I think a lot of the Chinese companies, if they ever try to copy it, they would just be like, yeah, well, we won't bother. We just do one light, boink. So there we go, guys. There we go. I'm looking forward to getting this done, actually. A lot of you have been saying, well, where's this detail spray video? It's just a lot of buggering around, and you do this and you get this test done, you got to dust down and go again. And I just wanted to take a little bit of break from all that and do that little thing on waxes at the start of this year, which was great fun for me. And I had the urge to do that. So yeah, now we're back on quick detailers, and this will give us a really good, once we've done all of the tests, collated the best of the best. That recommendation is going to be as solid as it gets, because to win, it's going to have to give you value. It's going to have to give you a good user experience. So it's going to get penalised if it's some shoddy bottle or something, or the label's all creased, or there's something stupid in the instructions, typos, all that. Or it's a bad experience applying it, we'll pick up on all that. We'll pick up on gloss, we'll pick up on slickness, we'll pick up on hydrophobicity and durability. And again, we're repeating ourselves here with another video, but we'll put it all in there. And then for those of you that are really into this and are looking to pick a product for your requirements, because you might say, I don't care about beading, John. Well, it's like, well, just skip that then. Or pick the ones that don't bead well and have got lower contact angles, because you might get your sheeting thing going on. Some people are really fussy. I'm fussy, but you know, I'm not that fussy. For me, a detail spray, I have to be able to hurl it on. In an ideal world, if this car was all soaking wet, I'd want to be able to plaster the car in it and buff it all up to a shine with no streaking. I'd want to be able to spray it over like door cards and tidy things up. Ideally, I'd like to be able to put it on glass. I don't tend to do that, but if I trust one on glass, you can still clean your glass and it can put a bit of protectant on there. They have to be very good optically to do that. So I like it when they say that you can use them on glass. So I do like a versatile kind of hurl it on detail spray, but I do also kind of factor in price. You know, for me, when a company like CarPro are selling you 500 mil of detail spray for £5, I'm less inclined to go out there and pay. There's one here for like 20 quid for less than 500 mil. That's over 4 times the cost from a brand that's not even as premium as CarPro. So yeah, I'm looking for abnormal, high quality, high value products. You said that many times on the channel, performance and value, because all of these brands will tell you their products are the best. Every brand, bar none. And they'll all tell you they use high quality materials, and they'll all tell you it's all the bee's knees, which they have to. Yeah, you know, not averse to that, but this kind of testing is very clinical, and I like that. Yeah, so there we go. We're getting there. Take care. Hope you enjoyed that one. Don't forget to subscribe. Doug.